Tigers with your hosts, Rogelio, Chris, John, and Uper.
All right, so apparently John is on his way as he's getting a perm done. I don't know why we're celebrating that, but yes, he's getting a perm done. And so that he'll be on shortly. Welcome to another episode.
Be a new man.
It's going to be a new man. Yeah, it was a perm. I'm going to spoiler alert. He got a perm. He's getting a perm.
I think I was right.
I absolutely love it.
You're the other one was pretty funny, but we're not gonna, for the sake of PG-13-ish kind of behavior, we're not gonna put it is PG-13, but I'm not gonna embarrass John like that. Welcome to another episode of Woodward Tigers here at woodwardsports.com, where you can see alongside me is Chris and Uper. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcast, and of course over at woodwardsports.com. We did get a review over the week, and again, it was a 2-star review based off the review was interesting. They said that I have a short attention span, squirrel. So whatever. That one I just was like, you listened to 5 minutes of the show and you made a conclusion. So basically screw off. So whatever. We move on, Anyways. So coming up tonight, we're going to be talking about the roster spots as Andre Lipcius and Parker Meadows continue to make their case to make the 40 opening day roster. We're going to talk about the World Baseball Classic. And Cuba lost to Italy. Man, I know Cuba's not what it used to be, but Italy.
Hey, you got Johnny Valenti over there doing his thing.
Yeah, Johnny Valenti is a national treasure. And this happened last night, too, as well. As now, all of a sudden, now it doesn't want to kill for me. There we go.
Tying run on first base. Edman goes. Perkins throw down to second. In time! Team Australia stuns Korea to open Pool B.
That's something you see every day. A walk-off, pick-off, if you will. And Australia, I stayed up until like the 7th inning and started falling asleep, but that was a pretty good game. Korea, again, as how high they are ranked in the World Baseball Classic and among baseball rankings, couldn't get it done. And Australia, props to Tiger prospect Jack O'Laughlin. I always say that name wrong. Pitched 2 scoreless innings to start the game. The Koreans didn't get their first hit, I believe, till the 5th inning.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was a good game to watch. A lot of fundamental baseball, fundamentals at its finest. But then the home run power, Australia showed it off, and then the other game, Japan beat. I believe it was Chinese Taipei, or just China. I'm sorry, China. Yeah, China 8-1. And tonight at 11:30. Excuse me, if you're listening to this, so Wednesday night. Cuba plays Panama at 11:30, and Thursday night. I'm a little off. So Thursday night, you're right. So if you're listening to this game's already happened. So Cuba and Panama at 11:30, and then China and the Czech Republic playing their first game in the tournament. Right now, bottom of the 9th, Team Israel all over the Washington Nationals 9-0. Earlier today, Minnesota beat the Dominican Republic 2-1. And Puerto Rico lost to Atlanta 9-0 yesterday. The Venezuelan ball club beat the Mets 6-4, and Miguel Cabrera got a standing ovation when he left the game. And another game too, another interesting one. The Colombian team beat the White Sox 5-4. Great Britain lost to Kansas City 8-1. The Mariners beat Team Canada 5-3. The Team Mexico beat Colorado, beat the brakes off of them 11-1, and then the United States blanked the Angels 6-0. So I don't know if anybody on our chat or anybody who's been watching the World Baseball Classic, but really that's interesting, Todd. So Todd has mentioned that the Australian media doesn't usually mention baseball down there, but that was a big deal. That was a very big deal, and again, very well played game by the Australians. And I like their jersey too. They explained how the boomerang explains the diamond, stuff like that. So that was pretty cool.
Anytime in pool play like that, where you can create that upset early, they got a nice little shot at advancing now. That's pretty cool. And the more of the non-traditional baseball countries that can make a little noise in this, I always think that just makes it such a better tournament, a good time. I liked having Tom de Blok pitch for the Netherlands yesterday. And, I mean, he gave up a couple base runners, but I don't think he gave up any runs, or was it one run? I forget. But he pitched okay, and they went on to win, and the Netherlands is in a good shape now. They're 2-0 to move forward.
Yeah, he pitched the opener against the versus Team Cuba, and that was the first time. I think he put on a little weight, too, because I was telling Chris he looks a little schmelt.
Yeah.
Chris, you're on mute, sir. There you go.
There we go. Yeah, I didn't have anything good to say anyway. But no, it's definitely cool to see. I don't know, I like that they're pretty lenient with who gets on what team, Like, there are a lot of players on Italy, like, they're not Italian, but they're Italian enough. That's good for me, because if that gets the people excited, then that's awesome. And Australia is they've had some big leaguers. They're still looking for their first big league hitter, I think. But it's definitely cool to see them have some success, and I'd be happy with just about anybody performing well, really. I don't know. I'd love to see China get good at baseball, given that
population.
Japan, the population. Japan is huge. Well, I mean, really is
right.
How long were they interested in basketball before Yao Ming showed up? Like 25 years, maybe. Like, get somebody's going to pop up. That's going to be awesome, right? So.
Australia's had a couple of hitters, though, haven't they, in the big leagues?
I don't know if they have.
I thought they had was there a catcher for the Brewers? Dave Nilsson?
Oh, I think that's their manager, too, I believe, as well.
Yeah, I think he played for the Brewers.
And the thing is that Cuba has played horribly, as Stan mentioned in the chat, and it's pretty. Look, as a Cuban American, I'm embarrassed, because you look at the team, what could have been if the actual some other Cubans were on the play, and that team looks a lot better. But that first pitcher, though, I'm going to say this: the Rodriguez, who pitched against the Netherlands, and he hasn't been able to pitch since because they have pitch limits and what have you. I forgot the guy. Trying to remember his first name, but that guy looked good. This is a guy who is pitching in Japan, and he's pitching as a closer. They stretched him out to 4 innings. I think he got 60 pitches, and he looked pretty good. Good fastball, top it on 97, 98. Slider looked really good, and that was a guy who kept Cuba in the game. Offensively speaking, Cuba is inept. They have Luis Robert and Jan Makata, and they couldn't do nothing. And it is what it is. So, but let's move on to MLB news. Just looking around the league before we get to the Tigers, the Yankees. So the Yankees, they cannot apparently keep pitchers healthy, and they're suffering some of the effects of. I mean, this is probably you can end up doing the good and the bad, the ugly on this, but Carlos Rodon, which, I mean, some Tiger fans wanted to sign, and I thought that was, but as you mentioned, Chris, and you guys were pretty adamant about this. Carlos Rodon will start the season on the IL. So also at the same time, they also got Tommy Cahill and Lutz Ravino, who's also on the IL. And keep in mind that Rodon signed a 6-year, $162 million deal, and a lot of teams were scared off about giving him a long-term deal. And again, this is also a team who's not going to have Frankie Montas to start the season. So here's what's going to happen here in the next couple of weeks. Yeah, Yariel Rodriguez. Thank you, Connor, in our chat. So here's what's going to happen. This is going to be the trickle-down effect. How many times are we going to hear, the Tigers should trade? Sorry, everybody hates that. The Tigers should trade for, or the Yankees should trade for Erod. Mm-hmm. You're going to hear that. You're going to hear it.
Well, already have.
Now, yeah.
Yeah. I also remember a couple weeks ago, somebody was suggesting Turnbull to the Yankees for some prospects. Yeah, I mean, this is what happens. Like, it's kind of reminiscent of the James Paxton signing. There are some guys who just, like, Montas has been injured a fair amount. Rodon has been injured a bunch. I wanted the Tigers to sign Rodon just because he's a guy with an ace ceiling, and those guys don't come around. But obviously, this is the downside of that. Now, they said it's a mild elbow strain. Has nothing to do with his UCL. It's the same sort of thing he was dealing with last May, but we'll see. Anytime you're dealing with an elbow and you're a pitcher, it's not mild. We've learned that. Yeah. We learned that like 30 times last year with the Tigers. Like, Matt Manning's just got a little mild discomfort. 4 months later. Hey, welcome back, Matt.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a bummer for them, but that's what they chose to do. They chose to go out and sign some risky pitching, and this is what you get.
So, some Yankee fans are out there going, look at what Cashman did. Look what Cashman did. He couldn't sign a healthy arm. And they're already, you already can tell. So, hopefully I don't get any crap about my Yankee imitation.
You're Yankee fan. I mean, Garrett Cole has been pretty damn good for the Yankees.
Right.
He hasn't been the, all-world Roger Clemens in his prime that I think some people had hoped for, but he's awfully good. And so that signing has worked out pretty well so far. But, yeah, pitching's tough.
Cashman is pretty good about putting things together with some guys we haven't heard of as much. And they are always able, it seems like, to limp along and keep things afloat until he can get an entire staff together. And I wouldn't worry too much. That's why I also don't think really that they're ever going to be looking at Eduardo Rodriguez this spring. I don't think the good teams panic in spring training. I think they try to patch things internally and trust your depth and start the season with that, unless a really great deal comes across your desk. But otherwise, you trust your depth and move forward and add as you go during the season.
Yeah. When's the last blockbuster spring training trade you can remember?
Oof.
I'm sure there's been a couple, but I can't think of. I mean, last year the Tigers got Austin Meadows at the very end of spring training, right? But that was about as big as I can remember in Detroit.
Outside of the trade for Willie Hernandez in '84, I think the beginning of spring training. I know we're gonna have somebody correct us in our YouTube chat. So, one of
the things I always remember, and I give Dombrowski credit for, was I believe it was 2014 was the year Iglesias got hurt in spring training.
Mm-hmm.
I remember he was going to miss a lot of the year, if not all the year. We had so many people saying Stephen Drew was out there, right? He hadn't signed with anybody. He ended up not signing until after the draft. I mean, tons and tons of fans wanted Stephen Drew signed by the Tigers late. They'd forfeit a draft pick and the whole deal. And when he traded instead, Dombrowski went out and got that guy from California for the Angels. I can't remember who it was.
Roma?
No. Do you remember that? Was it Hernandez or Fernandez or? He was around for like 3 weeks. He got a big hit in his first game, and then
he was with the Angels. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. But
yeah, everybody said that Dombrowski panicked and went and got that guy, and I said the exact opposite. Panicking would have been signing Stephen Drew.
Alex Gonzalez, thank you, Alex.
There you go, Alex Gonzalez.
Thank you, Connor.
And that was a nothing move. That was a Band-Aid of Band-Aids, right? But people called that a panic trade. I was like, that's not a that's a even keel trade, to be honest. That's just hoping a guy does something for you. The panic move would have been Stephen Drew. They didn't do that, and I think that was the right call. It turned out to be the right call because he stunk that year. That's why I think teams, the good GMs, don't panic this time of year. I don't think they need to.
And on the topic of pitching, look, the bottom line is this. I think there is free. I think the Rays kind of do it best a little bit. They get rid of their pitchers before they hit the age of 30. I mean, look at Chris Archer, David Price. All that comes to mind. So there's no exact science, but I think Tampa to me has one of the better sciences. You stick these guys, pitch them until when they're close to 30, trade them for prospects. And for the Yankees, the thing is they have a lot of great offensive prospects. Pitching wise, I can't think, I mean, off the top of my head right now, without looking it up, I can't think of a really good starter that's come out of the Yankee system that has been homegrown. Like just a guy that's going out there. You have I know they have a couple guys that come to mind, but nothing really just outstanding. And so I think on the development side of things, I'm surprised New York doesn't spend more time in developing pitching.
Well, I mean, Severino had at least one really good year, but he's been injured. But honestly, most pitchers take a few years to figure things out. And when you're the Yankees, you don't have time to let guys figure things out. So they do a lot of trading of their pitching prospects and signing, free agent pitchers or getting starters via trades. Like, I don't know if Nestor Cortez made his way through their system forever or what, but yeah, sometimes it's just it's too long of a process for them to worry about it. Like, Jameson Taillon, he came from the Pirates. I'm trying to think of who else they've had recently. But yeah, it seems mostly trades and signings for their starters.
Yeah, because I know they had a big arm that they traded to the Pirates in that deal. That's doing well for Pittsburgh. Remember that it was the guy we saw in Erie, Chris. Remember the?
Yeah. I am forgetting his name.
Yeah,
Carpenter did a home run off of him on a curveball. That's what I remember.
Yeah, it was a hanger that just he took out of. So, speaking of which, by the way, we are going to be in Erie for opening day. We're going to be out there for 2 days. So it's not going to be like when we go to Erie in the summer when it's hot. We're going to go out there in April. So be interested to see how we can handle the elements. Hopefully it's nothing outrageous. Hopefully there's some nice weather. But sorry, you mentioned Erie, and I had to put that in there before I forget. But as far as that goes, I mean, it's if the Yankees are probably going to go something that eternal, and if they want to go for it, great. And I just know that, and somebody mentioned it, it's already happening in the Tigers Discord about the trade possibilities, and there's going to be that kind of thing on social media. Get rid of Erod. He's a bum, or whatever.
He's been good in spring training.
Yeah.
You check that ERA leaderboard, and he's number 1 with 0 earned runs so far in spring training. And by the way, that pitcher we were talking about was Roansy Contreras.
Thank you. Yeah, that guy's got a big arm. Is he with the Pirates now, or was?
Yeah, he did. He debuted last year.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And they had Hayden Wisniewski or whatever, various Ken Waldachuk, all these dudes who they trade to get pieces. But yeah, I'm looking forward to getting back to Erie. Like I said, I always post up that picture of it being a negative 151 degrees on the broken the broken clock. It might actually be that temperature when we go this time, so we'll see.
Yeah.
Is Erie Stadium near the lake?
It's like probably a mile and a half, 2 miles from.
Okay.
It's not that close.
Yeah, it's more. The stadium's more in downtown Erie versus near the water. Where the
PNC Park, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, that's where the home of the Seawolves. But Contreras is a stud. Yeah, that guy had a very good fastball on him. So another piece of news before we move on to our segments is Statcast is getting better and better all the time, and we did get a little bit of warning from Mike Petriello about Petriello. Did I say that right?
Petriello.
Damn it.
He was
all right.
today.
Yes. And there's a new stat that's coming out, and he warned us a little bit. There was some new stuff. He wasn't trying to hint, like he didn't really give us some new, like he was telling us there's going to be a few of them coming out, and that was the debut of catching blocks. Is that right? Catching blocks.
Yeah, they're just focusing on, they're doing like, blocks above average and all that good stuff. Yeah. Basically putting run values on how well catchers block the ball and prevent pass balls and wild pitches.
Yeah, and that's pretty cool considering that framing might be obsolete with the robot umping and all that stuff. So framing might be a thing of the past. So get some more value on how catchers are worth. So that's pretty cool. So
I'll be interested to know if like spin rate of the pitch plays into it, like how hard it was to block, that kind of stuff. Because sometimes it's not necessarily a fastball; it can be a wild curve is a harder pitch to block.
Well, yeah. I think our buddy Cameron was actually talking about that with Mike Petriello, or not necessarily that, but he was like, because they have like a block percentage. And there was like a Gregory Soto pitch that was about 8 feet short of the plate. And there was like, it was 78% block rate. And they're like, what? How could anybody block that? But so I would think that all gets factored into it. But Adley Rutschman, surprise, was the number 1, 18 blocks above average.
Wow.
It's intense.
Yeah. Tigers catchers?
It's gonna be a work in progress.
Eric Haas was negative 11, which is the second worst in baseball, ahead of only MJ Melendez, who was negative 25. He just kind of stood there, but umps don't like being behind him.
Yikes.
No.
Yeah, because they're going to get blasted in the shin. All right, so it's now time for Inside the Numbers. All right, Uper, you kick things off. What is your Inside the Number?
My inside number is $400 million. Aaron Judge's agents put out there today, or at least in the last couple of days, that the Padres actually offered him over $400 million this winter on a deal. He ended up obviously signing 9 years, $360 in New York, so he's fine. he's okay, but it is just amazing to me, and the reason I just picked that as my number, the Padres, I know they're in the division with the Dodgers, and they're always working their way uphill, but it is amazing where they find the cash, and how they are constructing their ball club and how aggressive they are. I mean, they were in the running for Aaron Judge to add on to that roster of theirs. If they were, you got to believe one of these years they're going to bust through and take out the Dodgers. I don't know if it's going to be this year. It's going to be Xander Bogaerts. Bogaerts' power was down a little bit this year or last year, but that was a big signing again. They stepped up and made that signing. They extended Darvish and a few other things. So it really, the lengths the Padres are going these days. I believe that they offered Aaron Judge $400 million. It actually doesn't surprise me.
Look, they need, what they need, the Chargers or San Diego needs to do is incorporate this song as part of their intro when they come in. San Diego Superchargers, San Diego Chargers, San Diego. Say what?
You nailed that post, like
yeah.
Song
Here on 97.5 WLLL.
Wasn't it the Giants? Weren't they the ones? So the Padres were that close to. I thought the Giants were the team that had the second best chance to get them. That's wild.
It was in the Athletic.
Yeah, no, I hadn't heard that yet. That's wild. Yeah, because I thought the Giants were the team that people thought had them or had him. But yeah, I agree with you though. The Padres. It's nice to see a small markets team, as it were, going for it. And San Diego's a giant market, but
Yeah, I was just gonna say, and the reason why the Chargers don't use that song anymore, it's because they don't play in San Diego.
Yeah.
Although I look, not to go too off baseball here, but imagine you being the Chargers, you play in a soccer stadium now for less than what you had before, all because you wanted to get out of San Diego so bad. The Charger, everybody loves you in San Diego. No one gives a crap about you in Los Angeles.
Exactly.
I don't get it, man. I really don't get it. Doesn't make any sense to me. So,
and it was a stadium, right? They don't even own it, right?
Correct. Yeah, it's owned by the soccer team. I believe it's not even. I think it's the Galaxy's team. I can't remember.
It's so lousy. I know they're getting not that great of a deal.
Yeah.
So, bizarre.
Yeah, truly bizarre. Chris, what is your inside the number?
So I have two. One is 4, one is 6. 4 is actually the number of swings and misses that Michael Lorenzen got today with his changeup, which is not necessarily noteworthy on its own, although he's gotten 4+ whiffs on his changeup 15 times in his career. Although this was just the 5th time he's done it on fewer than 60 pitches. Normally it takes him more. But when I was looking at that, I noticed that he's gotten 5+ whiffs 11 times in his career, and 8 of them came last year. So it seems like the changeup has really become a plus weapon for him. Maybe it's just because he was moving in the rotation, but I just thought it was worth pointing out because it does seem like his best games with the changeup ever were all toward the end of last year. So it seems like something to pay attention for him going forward this year. Might be a key pitch for him. And the 6 is just Cesar Hernandez doubles, which is the most in baseball in spring training. He's got 6 of them. Now the one of them today I think was a sunball, but
Yes, it was. Yeah.
they all count. So I don't know, just early spring fun numbers.
And you said Matthew Boyd, right? The first number.
No, Michael Lorenzen.
Oh, Michael
Lorenzen.
Lorenzen. Okay, cool. No, because my Matthew Boyd is my good this week. So
Nice.
or part of my good this week. So my inside number there's two of them, 24.2 and 21.2. 24.2 and 21.2. That is the whiff rate. 24.2 is the whiff rate of Mason
Englert.
Yeah, Mason Englert, and the 21.2 belongs to Tyler Holton among the team leaders for the Tigers. So if you're talking about Erod, you're talking about Erod earlier, his whiff rate or his whiff percentage rather. These are whiff percentages, pardon me. Erod 12.5, Matthew Boyd 17.5.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, those are especially with Tyler Holton's come out of nowhere to kind of take his case to the bullpen. That bullpen spot's gotten interesting.
Yeah.
There's some talk about Will Vest, but Will Vest had one bad outing. He seemed like he was looking sharp today. But Bo Brisky, yeah, there's a question in the chat about, is it fair to say Bo Brisky has more promise than Manning? You know what? If anything, I think Brisky, because of where he's drafted and everything, he's had to work his ass off to get where he's at. Again, nothing against Matt Manning or anything, but the slow ramp up of Manning, he pitched. Was it yesterday? He pitched yesterday. What was it? Yesterday or the day before? 6.
A couple days ago, he hit Justin Turner in the face.
Oh yeah, that Boston fans were pretty pissed about that. But yeah. So, but yeah, I don't know. Like, I think Brisky served well. I mean, if we're gonna put Brisky in the bullpen and let him air out like that at 97, 96, 97, by all means. But if you're going to put him in the rotation, back in the rotation, I'm cool with that too. Brisky gives you that that flexibility to have as either a swingman. And to me, I think if the Tigers decide to trade a pitcher and at the trade deadline, like Rod and Brisky's doing well, then you'll be Tigers not competing this year, or not contending this year. But you put Brisky in the rotation, feel safe about it. So
yeah, I haven't thought of those two in comparison to each other before, and it is interesting because I think they're about the same age. No, Brisky's actually a couple months younger than Manning, which feels odd because Manning just seems like the young kid. Brisky at this point throws harder, and he's got a significantly better changeup. Brisky does not have a usable breaking ball that I've seen though. Like it's just kind of there, and Manning. I mean, he got that slider last year that helped out a little bit, and his fastball has always played up better than the velocity suggests. But I think if we're being realistic, they're both kind of back-end starters.
Yeah.
I do think, like you said, that Brisky they may be more inclined to move Brisky into the bullpen just based on, his draft status and his 2 pitches. You can get away with that a little bit easier in the bullpen, but. Yeah, I don't know. I don't view either of them as having a particularly massive ceiling anymore, but both big league arms.
Brisky has, let's face it, we're not worried about his skill so much. Bo Brisky is the name of a late inning reliever. I mean, come on. Brisky's coming in, slam the door.
Brisky.
And he's a 2-pitch guy, so it makes sense. I think that's where he ends up, and he might be really good at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you deploy him or Garrett Hill either way. I mean, they've been using the Hill out of the bullpen too, so that's going to be interesting how going forward the next couple of weeks how they're going to decide that, because do you automatically slot in Manning to start the season? The Tigers have to go 7 or 8 deep in terms of rotation wise, because when Hinch spoke to us a few weeks back about we're going to have a slow ramp up with the guys and not give them all these innings at once, you're going to need to go 8 deep at least. So I think that Brisky or Hill, you can see him start, and however they're going to space it out.
Yeah, and you bring up Hill, and he's really kind of fascinating now, because he was a dude who was missing bats with his fastball in the minors, in the zone at the top of the zone at like 90 to 94, and now he's throwing 96. out of the bullpen, and he's still missing bats with his fastball, which is ideal. Now he's added a little bit of velocity to his slider this year, right? Or it's
Yeah.
So I mean, he looks like he could be a legitimate bullpen weapon down the road. I don't know if like I would go so far as to say setup man or closer or anything like that, but he's made himself very interesting in the tail end of last year and so far this spring. So that's a positive development.
Another positive element too on the Garrett Hill side of things, that spike curveball.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, and by the way, if you want to know, Frank, somebody asked in our chat if Franklin Perez is throwing a pitch in spring. I didn't see him at all. I mean, I saw a lot of names, or a lot of names I wasn't, or faces that I was familiar with. Spring, a lot of names that were relatively new, but if there was one name or face I did not see, was Franklin Perez in my time down there. So he could be. I'm trying to go back again in July, and hopefully he's pitching, and maybe we'll get a chance to see him. But one more inside number before I wanted to throw out there. The updated this, I love this account, by the way. It's Codify on Twitter. Posted this today. The 188 spring training games this year versus 268. The average is up 2 point. The average is up 2 points. OPS, or excuse me, on base percentage is up 13 points. Slugging's down 15 points. There's 4% more runs per game, 7% more singles, 14% fewer home runs per game, 17% more walks, 15 more hit by pitches. Ugh. Same amount of strikeouts, and 71 more steals. So that's a number that jumps up. So,
yeah, I feel like a fair amount of that is probably still just kind of noise, but yeah, the steals jumps out as. I think teams are really, they're having a lot of fun in spring testing these pitchers and the pitch clock. So I imagine that we'll see steals up a fair amount in the first half of the season, but by the second half, when everybody adjusts to the new rules, I bet you they'll go back down again.
Yeah, definitely. I think once we'll see. We've been seeing this a lot too, where a lot of teams are running and see a lot of errant throws by the catchers. I think it's just getting used to the amount of running too. So, Stan, by the way, yes, we'll get to that question. We'll save that question for the last. Do we think that this year's roster is superior than last year's? And yeah, we'll get to that. That's a good one. That's a good one for towards the end of the show for questions wise. But yeah, there is, to me, one of the things about the Tigers, why you see guys like Davis in camp is because with Jonathan, even Brendan Davis too, by the way, Brendan Davis is totally off the topic, but he's actually having a pretty good camp too.
Mm-hmm.
Actually been stinging the ball a little bit. And so has another guy that came out of nowhere recently and the Tigers, I think, are trying to put him at first base, is Mario Feliciano, the backup catcher for Baltimore. He's been hitting the crap out of the ball.
Was he for the Brewers?
Yes.
Yeah, no, it does. It seems like they like his bat and are just like, dude, forget about catching. Who cares? Which is fine,
we have 8 other catchers in right now.
We're swimming in Paperskis over here. No, did somebody ask a question about Jonathan Davis? I didn't see that. What?
Oh no, it was a question for later. We had from Mark about Davis getting some at bats. We'll talk about that a little later. And that is, Troy, you're absolutely correct on YouTube chat there with the question. There is one thing that I should have mentioned this earlier. I want to apologize to the fans out there. And on my roster 1.0 prediction, I did not have Spencer Torkelson as part of it. And of course, that's why you always put 1.0. It's not your final version. It's not you just put it out there because based off what you see, not based off what you see on box scores. So I had an opportunity to go down to Lakeland and I got to see some bats with Spencer Torkelson. They're a lot different now than they were. This week has been a completely different week than it was the first couple weeks of spring. So I'll owe everybody an apology. Spencer Torkelson has looked better, and I'm sure they'll come up in the good, the bad, the ugly. So
yeah, I was going to clarify for Troy about that, but it looks like Ty Cobb 4191 did it anyway. But yeah, you're allowed to throw over a third time, but if you do, you have to pick the guy off. Otherwise, it's considered a balk, I believe, and he gets the extra base. And it also resets. If you throw over twice and then there's a wild pitch or whatever, the guy moves up, it resets. You can throw to second twice if you need to. So yeah, they're going to be some weird things happening early in the season, but I think everybody will pick it up fairly quickly.
All right, so I'm bringing back the original music Well, this is the original theme, but by the way, you can find it on, I don't know if you guys use this site at all, but Internet archive.org, which has a bunch of things that are public domain that anybody can use. There's really cool video games on there and a bunch of music. So, but yes, this is back in the lexicon of our podcast history. So as we go on, Uber, what is your good, the bad, the ugly this week?
Well, my good, I'm going a little bit far afield here, but I want to just point out something that you never know what people are paying attention to. And for me this week, it's good old number 90, Austin Murr. Okay.
Oh, there you go.
Nice.
Austin Murr's gotten a little taste of big league action this week. Got his first hit, I believe, today. Drew a walk the other day. Scored some runs. He, of course, played here in Des Moines at Des Moines Area Community College, where my wife works. So has a local connection to Des Moines. What I can tell you is the coach, the current coach, you guys met, Nick Mishler. He's obviously, he was the assistant coach when Murr was here. He's bragging him up. You know, he's showing his players now, hey, here's one of our guys. He's in a big league camp. He's emailing that out to recruits, you know, say, hey, this is a DMAC guy. He's with the Tigers. So, you know, the vast majority of us, we're not too concerned about Austin Murr. Okay, he's probably a mid-level prospect. But in one little corner of the baseball world, he's a big deal. So you just never know where that's going to be. And that happens to be here in Des Moines for Austin Murr. My bad.
He barreled up the ball the other day. He got a barrel the other day.
There you go.
It was an out, but it was a barrel.
You got one. You know, the guy's an on-base machine in college. Good hitter. Who knows? Will he get a cup of coffee someday at the end of the season? He might. Yeah, he could do it. Probably worse guys than him have gotten up there at some point. So we'll see. My bad. I don't know if it's going to be a bad. It could end up being one of those things where I eat my words, and it could end up being a good. But I think it's a little sketchy. Mark DeRosa is managing the Team USA in this tournament. You know, no experience. I mean, he coached travel ball with his kid, right? So he's coached daddy ball. That's nice. He's on MLB Network. That's nice. He's played the game, obviously. And I'm not saying he's going to be worthless, but he's never proven it. It's just it was a sketchy move. I would have easily rather seen Jim Leland take another crack at it. You know, and I don't know how much managers matter in these short tournaments, but wouldn't you want to maximize your chances of going the distance here? And I'm not sure DeRosa is that guy, but maybe they'll prove me wrong. We'll see. My ugly, stepping out of baseball quickly. What I've been absolutely hating on Twitter. Mostly Lion fans, because I got a lot of Tiger fans as followers, but I've seen some Packer fans doing the same things. It's those damn mock drafts that they do their own. Oh my God, it's driving me insane. Here's the deal. I love mock drafts, and I like mock drafts done by pros. Okay? I want Baseball America's mock draft. I want Mel Kiper Jr., whether you love him or hate him, he devotes his life to the draft.
I want Chris Brown's mock draft.
There you go. Chris Brown's mock draft. Obviously, that went without saying. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
So, you know, I love that. But Joe Schlabotnik or, you know, Bobo Graham 123 at Bobo on Twitter with his mock draft. Oh, it's just incessant. It's everywhere. And here's what I hate. Every team, almost without fail, at some point drafts somebody from Northwestern Nowhere State, right? Mm-hmm. From some small college. All of these mock drafts invariably have a Power 5 player at every spot down the list. I mean, come on, it never happens. It's unrealistic. So I have a thumbs down on the John Q. Public mock draft.
You know, I like having fun with those. Like a couple years ago, I did one where I took running backs with every single pick. And there's also some that like will offer you trades. And so I was like, all right, I will take every single trade offered to me. I ended up with like 23 draft picks, like 8 first rounders for the next 3 years, and still like 20 players. I'm like, this is fantastic. I'm the greatest GM of all time.
Yes.
Those tools are fun, but it's a lot like the baseball trade simulator thing. you can break it really easily if you want to. If you decide to not be realistic at all, you can make the most absurd stuff. So you kind of you have to stay within yourself there and say, all right, I'm going to be realistic. But yeah, I don't need to see anybody else's mock draft. I'll play with that because it's fun, but I'm not going to share it unless I get like. I think I may do one with the 15 dirtiest names I can find.
That'd be fine. Yes.
Yeah. You know what? And also, it's a part of that trend lately too is the Aaron Rodgers updates. By the way, Connor, we're Far Side Fishing. It's more Jay Dilla who came up with the beat, but yeah, I'm a huge Far Side fan. Don't even get me started on Tribe Called Quest. We did a whole episode talking about Tribe Called Quest, but I am sick and tired of Aaron Rodgers had a bowel movement, and so we're going to report enough. God, shut up. Gee, until he actually gets traded to the Jets, I don't care. Bleacher Report, I get updates for Bleacher Report for baseball. I'm about to turn off the NFL ones because they're so obnoxious. He came out of the darkness room. I don't give a bleep. I don't care. Shut up.
He's just in there developing photographs.
Yeah. Or why are the Lions pursuing Lamar Jackson 248, and we have a trader golf? Enough.
Yeah,
Shut up.
Football is king, man.
Yeah, football is king. I look at analytics on the website, and I'm just like, I shake my head all the time because I'm like, I don't get it. Yeah. And of course, some of my articles do well, so I'm happy about that. I'm not, not to boast too much, but good Lord. Oh, all right, Chris. What is your good, the bad, the ugly?
So my good, I'll start with the Cardinals kids. So you got Jordan Walker, their top prospect. He's 12 for 28 this spring with 3 doubles and 3 home runs. It's good for a 1286 OPS. Tied for the most hits in spring training, second best OPS. Then you got Mason Wynn, who's kind of like a mini Ohtani. He's not pitching anymore, but we saw him pitch actually, I think, a couple years ago in West Michigan. He's 7 for 18 with a home run, a double, and 3 steals. He was clocked throwing 99.9 across the infield the other day, and his home run was 435 feet. These are 2 of the most dynamic, young, talented players in minor league baseball, and they're both 20 years old, and they haven't been to AAA yet, but it looks like they're going to play their way into St. Louis at some point this season. And it's super annoying because that was the same draft where the Tigers got Dylan Dingler and Daniel Cabrera and Gage Workman and Trey Cruz, and not that those guys are all bad, but they are not top 50 electric talents like the guys the Cardinals got. My bad is Joe Adell, which we try not to make too much out of spring training stats, right? But it's kind of disheartening to see him start 4 of 22 with 12 strikeouts, 12 and 22 at bats. He was a monster prospect a couple of years ago, and he still has a lot of talent, but he just can't stop striking out at the major league level. He had a 37.5% strikeout rate last year to go along with a Harold Castro-esque 3.9% walk rate. And in his career, it's 34.8% strikeout rate, 4.7% walk rate, in almost 600 plate appearances. So it looks like he's going to be a bust, which is unfortunate. It happens, but yes, the Cardinals.
Well played, Chad. Well played, Chad.
What was the Cardinals' last losing season? 2001, something like that.
Yeah.
Probably not even that. It was, Joe Adell looking like a bust. It's just unfortunate. But it's a reminder that does happen, right? These were guys, top 10 prospects don't always work out. And my ugly is Tyler Danish, which he sounds like he should be delicious, but these numbers will make you want to throw up. He's in Yankees camp. He has appeared in 3 games and recorded 4 outs. He's also allowed 14 runs on 12 hits, 2 walks, and 1 hit batter. He's given up 3 home runs and struck out 2 batters. That adds up to an ERA of 94.5 and a WHIP of 10.50. So he's putting 10 batters on per inning he pitched. It's been a rough spring for Tyler Danish. And and a bonus ugly is Michigan basketball. Good riddance. You guys, what a brutal team. They had 1 made field goal in the first 19 minutes of the second half today. 1.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So anyway.
Yeah, screw Michigan basketball.
Yeah.
They're out. Yeah. By the way, fun fact: the Cardinals have not had a losing season since 2007. Since 1995, the Cardinals have had 4 losing seasons. That's it. And
is it also true they've never had a 100-loss season, right, in their history?
I believe that is true. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe that is true. I'll double check that, but you stand corrected, Uper, as I'm looking through their page right now. I haven't seen the most they've ever lost in one season is, as I do show research on the fly here. No, take that back, Uper. They had, this is during dead ball, so does it really count? So in 1907, 1908, they lost back-to-back 100 lost seasons.
God, they suck.
Yeah. So
wasn't there this St. Louis Browns back in the day that just served as like the farm team for the Cardinals? They would just trade their players to the Cardinals, and the Browns would lose like 110 games in a 150 game season. Maybe I'm thinking of the Cleveland Spiders. I don't know, but. So
if you're talking about during the modern era of baseball, so anything from when the mountain was raised in 1969, so from 69 on, they've lost 93 games. That's the most they've lost. They lost 93 games in 1978. So there you go.
There you go.
How many times have the Tigers lost 93 games in the last 6 seasons?
Chris, I don't know why you want to hurt me this much, but if you want to,
it's 4, right? It's got to be 4.
So the Tigers.
How many times do they lose 93 games in the next 3 years?
Yeah,
the Tigers have lost. So the Tigers have lost since 2000. If we're going back to, let's just go back to 2013 for S and giggles. They have lost 98 games, 95 or more games, 3 times.
2018.
Last year, 96 games.
2019.
Yeah.
It's basically 2021 and 2020.
Yeah, I'm sorry. 4 times. Yeah, I can't count. I forgot about the.
One of those was a COVID year. They probably would have lost. So
they were in the COVID year. They're 23 and 35. But here's an example. The worst period of Tiger baseball is when I literally stopped watching Tigers after the season. It was 2000. It wasn't the 2003 season that I got mad about. It was the 2002 season, because the Tigers came off a promising 2000 year where they finished 79 and 83, and then it just went worse and worse after that. I was like, screw it. I sat through all that baseball throughout the 90s, and I was like, I was done. Mm-hmm. I was done for a while, and I gave up on Tiger baseball for a little bit. So my good this week is Matt Boyd's changeup, which really, I mean, in terms of his start against the Cardinals, which we're going to stick with the Cardinals anyways, because if any way I can stick the Cardinal way back at Cardinal fans, I will. So this week he had 9 swings and misses on his start against the Cardinals. His changeup was actually uptick in velocity. His changeup was looking pretty good. He was using it at the top of the zone along with his fastball, and that was able to generate his called strike whiff percentage of 40% with his changeup. That's pretty good. Yeah. And that's a little above normal, because this is a changeup that wasn't really serviceable before. It was a pitch that really didn't do much, and often he was trying to use it to, of course, throw people off. But if his slider's going with the fastball, and he has that if he has a changeup, he can use his changeup much more effectively in his pitch sequencing. So that was a good sign to see. And he also was hitting 95 on the gun. So the more velocity on his fastball, the better it plays off his off-speed pitches. He topped out 95, but he was averaging about 93. So my bad. So looking at sticking with the Tigers here a little bit, I'm not trying to go across. I was going to go across the league a little bit, but I was a little negative earlier about what was going on with the Yankees rotation. So I figured that was enough negativity for one day. But the bad is the Tyler Nevin injury, who injures his oblique, which is why we're seeing more of probably Andre Lipcius playing first base and getting some time at third, which is not a bad thing. I know that I'm a quote unquote Andre Lipcius stan, which I just now using that term for the first time ever. And he's making a case to make the roster. And so, but no, the injury on that side, I say that's bad because this is a guy who I think Nevin really had a chance to. I mean, he was, there's a couple times where he had a couple good hits, but he's kind of looked a little rocky as of late. And also the bad is Dylan Dingler getting called down the camp so quickly, which I was hearing Dan Dickerson talk about this. It seemed like he was disappointed that he got sent down so quickly, and Hinch sent him with some instructions. So it wouldn't surprise me if he starts the year in Erie. I don't know. What are you gonna say, Chris, about Dingler?
I didn't see a lot of people complaining about that. They sent down Cole Keith and Justin Henry Malloy and Elvis Alvarado and Dingler. But we talked about it before. Like, those were basically the only actual prospects who were invited officially to spring training. And I took that all as it's a little bit different with catchers because they just need every catcher. But for all those guys, I took that invite as just a reward, basically, or kind of a carrot for like, hey, this is what we think of you guys. More than, I think they told them all at the beginning of spring, like, none of you guys are going to make the team no matter what you do. So them getting sit down early doesn't shock me at all. It did feel like a bummer that Dingler was never really. We've seen a lot of catchers get plate appearances, and did he get one game? I think
Maybe.
Yeah. So that was a bit of surprise, but maybe that's Hinch, the mastermind psychologist at work. Like, you just sit here, and maybe even told him, like, hey, you just sit here and watch, and see what you have to do, and then go hang with the guys in the minors and take it to them. But I don't know. We've all kind of lowered our expectation for Dingler over the last year or so, but I'm not completely out on him yet.
Yeah, and I would agree with what Connor said, is that he is missing too many pitches in the zone. Especially we saw this last year where he down to Erie. There's so many times where all you had to do was bust him inside, and he was done. He couldn't do anything. You just throw right on the inside corner and anything like low and away too. To me, I think it's more disappointing than the Gage Workman thing, or Gage Workman, because Dingler was touted as you could see the Erie Pro. I had the magnet in my fridge. Mm-hmm. Dingler, Green, Torkelson. That's going to be the next big wave, and he has gotten left behind. And Josh Crouch is the official friend of the Tiger Minor League Report podcast.
Yeah, he hasn't gotten much action either, but he wasn't officially invited.
Right.
But like in every spring training game, they bring over a bunch of guys from Tiger Town. We saw today Austin Bergner pitched. He was never invited to camp. They just bring some guys over to give them experience and to have some extra bodies. So we've seen Ben Balgeri play center. We saw Austin Murray. We saw Andrew Navigado's been playing a couple times. Jace Young today. Jace Young got a hit.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
So
we're gonna talk about that too, because there's the difference in swing, because we have the video, because we were there. We were there, and we can talk about that. So, and then my ugly is non-baseball related. It's Sean Kemp, and the news that came out yesterday that he was arrested in connection with a drive-by shooting. That he was released from jail. No charges will be filed at this time. He was arrested and booked on Wednesday evening after he was spotted. Reports of shot fired in the Tacoma Mall just before 2:00 on Wednesday. And so it just seems weird, because you think of the Rain Man, you think of him as a guy, of course, for many reasons. Defensive basketball. He was, synonymous with the Seattle Supersonics, having 10 or 11 children. One of the first guys you hear about having and those things. But those are going to be. Anyways, Sean Kemp is kind of, I guess, gotten on fall time, or has fallen on hard times. And so, but I think for a while, I think he was cooking too. I think he was like doing restaurant stuff for a while. I can't remember.
Let him cook. I don't know. I just want. I was talking to my buddy about this, and I was like, you know what, if you are older than 25 and you get involved in a drive-by shooting, you get an extra 10 years for being lame.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it just seems weird.
That is a young man's game. You're not drive-by shooting when you get out of the car and shoot if you're 50. Come on.
Yeah, it just seems like when you hear that, you're like, wait, what? What? I'm trying to understand the kind of the whole thing behind it, because you're like, wait, that I'm watching that correctly? It's one of those headlines that came over. But for anybody who's watching us in the YouTube channel, you're gonna get, and for people who may not remember him as, you're too young. You're too young to remember Sean Kemp. Well, here you go. Here's why Sean Kemp. Look at his size. Look at this. Just dunk. All I saw was dunk. I mean, wow. Look at Boston Gardens too. But this is what Sean Kemp was known for. This was his big thing. He was a big dunker. good on blocks, rebounds. Him and Gary Payton, ultimate combo in NBA Jam. If you're gonna play NBA Jam, Kemp and Payton are a good combo right there. But of course, I remember when Seattle was, like, I think, the number 1 seed in the West. It was like 95-96, and the Nuggets beat them. Do you remember that, Chris?
Yeah, Mutombo.
Yeah, Mutombo. Yeah. Oh, Chris is off the camera. I was so enamored with that. But yeah, no, it was Sean Kemp was, he could pause in there. So yeah. Anyway, Xavier McDaniel. That's a name I've heard for a while. All right,
the X-Man.
X-Man. Yeah, cool X-Man poster too. All right. So there's my ADHD kicking in there. But yeah. Oh, Chris, did you missed? I was talking about the Rockets or the Supersonics Denver, the Nuggets beating
the first 8-1 upset.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that distinctly when it mattered.
Yeah.
Five game opening series.
Oh yeah.
That was really the first time I remember Mutombo really doing the finger thing at people to really try to stick the knife in. You know.
Well, I
really
remember them clutching the ball and crying on the ground after they won. That was the image of that series.
I heard a great story. Didn't somebody tell us a story about Mutombo at a party or something? Chris, were you privy to that?
No, yeah. The famous story is that he walked into a party and said, "Who wants to sex Mutombo?"
Ha 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 ha. Gave it his finger.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Oh man, so that's all right. That's our segments for the week: the good, bad, the ugly, and inside the numbers. So, but so I wanted to bring this up because I thought this was worth noting, and we have the footage. We have the footage, Chris. Inside joke there. So Jace Young has, like, been the subject of a lot of, like, prospects lists and where he's ranked. A lot of them have him ranked as a top prospect in the system, 1 or 2, whatever the case is. And so Chris, where do we have him on our list? I can't remember right now.
I think he's either 9th, 10th, or 11th.
All right,
like,
so here's
lower than you'll see him anywhere else.
Yes, he is lower on our list. So here's today. Here's today's his swing today.
John.
And I wanted to just point this out. Look at where his barrel is right here. Look at that. Nice, good stroke. Very good stroke. Took what was with him and was able to go to left field with that. So, all right.
Wow.
So that's a good stroke, right? You know, it looks a lot different. So we're going to go back in time, and we're going to go back to last year. And I'm now going to trying to – this is where I noticed this immediately. Let's see here if I can find a non-Texas Tech highlight, because there's a lot of those that are on there.
You should,
but
filter by Tigers minor league report. You'll probably
So this is where I thought there was a difference in the swing, and I wanted to point this out for anybody who's watching us on YouTube, or if you're listening to the podcast, come check this out later on YouTube. So this is him in West Michigan last year. Bat's a little slightly. What are you saying, Chris?
The barrel's pointed farther backward. Oh, that was when he got his finger stuck in the bat. Oh God, I forgot about that.
Oh yeah, weren't we there? Or no, I remember that. Yeah, because I texted you that. Yeah. I think I was texting you like, what just happened?
Yeah, the bat splintered and then came back together and basically pinched his hand.
Jeez.
Which is something, like I've never ever seen with a.
No,
it doesn't happen in college. I'll tell you that much.
All right, well, let me find a actual. Let's just look at at bat here. All right. So anyway, she'll come in. She'll put up on the fly.
Hey, we were at that game.
Yeah, we were at that game. Let's see. So if you notice here,
where are we? Look
right there.
Oh, all right.
That's a good question. Where were we?
I've got video of this from the other angle, but in any event,
we got the highlights here. So anyway, here's how it seems like his hands were quicker to the zone today.
I mean, the only thing I noticed was it didn't look like he had his bat kind of parallel to the ground anymore.
Yeah,
right.
When he was starting, but I don't know if that actually changes his swing at all. It might make him slightly quicker to get into a swing. But yeah, with just a couple, just a few swings today, it's kind of hard to know. But that was, I mean, we're looking at right now at the one home run he hit last year, and one of the very few balls that he pulled. Most of what we saw last year in terms of contact was what he did today, which was a very nice single to like left center field. But then his second at bat, I think he popped up to third base. And I don't want to say he's not late on everything, but it just seems to be his approach to go to the opposite field all the time. And I worry that that's going to basically neuter his power. But we'll, he's a guy that I'll be watching really closely all season long because I was not impressed with him in person when we saw him last year, at least in terms of a guy who looked like a first-round pick. I didn't think he did. I thought he looked more like a third-round pick. But again, short sample size, end of a long year, probably dealing with some injuries, and players change. So I want to see what he looks like throughout the course of this season.
It would be good to know about the injury factor because he kind of leaked oil down the stretch in college too, right? The last 6 weeks.
Yeah, I think he had a hip issue, but there may have been more to it than that. Yeah, and everybody there were some people kind of clowning on him today because he scored, I think, from first, but he was really chugging along. He's like a 20 grade runner. He's like a Victor Martinez level runner, which is not great for somebody who's 22, 23 years old, but that's just the way his body works, man. He's got these big sausage legs, and yeah, they didn't draft him for his speed, so we don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, they could draft him for the potential power and potential hitting for average. So it's one sample size, a very small sample size, but it is very encouraging to see if this is something that can be consistent. And this is why doing prospects, you don't write somebody off immediately. You just kind of wait and see what happens from there. But again, it also really helps that we had Cole Keith number 1. So I'm just saying.
Yeah, and it was cool to see him his first at bat in spring. Young get out there and get an RBI. That was hopefully that makes him feel good for the rest of the spring and propels him to a good season in the minors. It's got to feel awesome for any player to do that in spring.
Especially Isaac Pacheco, who got his first single in the spring. It was good to see Isaac Pacheco get some at bats.
I think he started. I think his first plate appearance was a walk. Then he got 2 singles. Then he got another walk before I think he struck out the other day. But yeah, I mean, I'm impressed by any kid like that who comes to spring training and walks.
Yeah.
Because even look like Andre Lipcius has had a great spring. I don't think he has a walk yet, and he's a dude who walks a lot. I think he's just up there like really like having fun and swinging. And for any kid that you're not going to get more than a handful of plate appearances in spring, I would think you'd want to try to show the team what you can do. But to stay within your approach shows me a maturity that I was impressed with.
Yeah, speaking of Lipcius, that's before we get to our questions, that was the one thing about before his shots in terms of landing on the roster were long, but now with Nevin's injury, you look at they're going to have to make room for Hernandez because I think Hernandez is going to make the team. There's no doubt in my mind based off his spring, based off the fact of his position versatility, and he's a veteran who can draw walks. So that being said, is it Lipcius or Meadows that gets that kind of spot on the bench? And I think personally, I think Parker is the type of player that you have to start every day. To me, at least, in my opinion, he's actually outperforming his brother. So I know that people are going to say, "Well, what about him over Austin?" That's not Austin's going to stay on his team regardless. But as far as and that's kind of wow, that's good timing there by Alex in the chat. Do you guys think that any chance?
Great questions.
Yeah, there's 3 straight all the questions in a row, all at the same time. Everyone's thinking the same thing. DFA Scope. Think there's a chance of Scope and just bring Lipcius up? Do you guys think there's any chance that Scope gets cut? Honestly, look, I look at it this way. You have right now he's struggling for the Netherlands. Somebody posted earlier. I think it was Mark posted it or Stan rather. Stan posted he's like 1 for 7 for the Netherlands so far.
With a walk for him, that's good.
There's a walk, yes.
I got hit by a pitch too.
Yeah, absolutely. And bottom line is this: I think you have to start thinking about. Again, I'm not going to do irresponsible speculation, but you have to start thinking about this in the sense that Lipcius can play. He hasn't played a lot of second, and Hinch mentioned that he wants to see some reps. He mentioned in the Detroit News yesterday he wants him to get some more reps at second to increase the value. And he has said he's impressed him better than he's kind of made a more impression on him than he originally thought. And this is a guy I remember last year when we were in the dugout. I mentioned he randomly met without anybody asking about him. He says, "Yeah, I really, I've been hearing some good things about Lipcius down in Toledo." So, I think he has a good chance to make it. I'm going to say right now, officially, I think he's going to make the roster opening day. I'll give you one parts of my roster 2.0 construction over Ryan Kreidler. I mean, Kreidler is really, I don't know, man.
So, if you do Kreidler v. Lipcius, I think it's pretty, because we saw what AJ Hinch said. He said he wants the versatility on defense because he's trying to get the best offense on the field. If it were just about catching the ball, I think it would be Kreidler, because Kreidler is a plus or at least above average major league shortstop, which Lipcius is not. But Kreidler could probably play center field too with more reps. He's fast. But Lipcius he made a really nice double play at first base today, 3-6-3, which is not the easiest double play. He's looked solid at second and third. I'll be interested to see if they throw him out in the outfield corner at some point, because he is like we said, he was a guy in the minors who he hit for some power, like average power, but he was mostly an on base percentage batting average guy. Give you good plate appearances and get on base, and he has that power. He just hadn't tapped into it much. So I think he is the superior offensive player, and I think that's what the Tigers are looking for. The only questions in my mind, and I don't think they're going to DFA Scope. This is a guy 2 years ago who hit 280 with 22 home runs, and last year was the best defensive second baseman in baseball. Like, everybody's just tired of him because they don't think he's going to be part of the future or a contributing member of the team or whatever. But he's a pretty good major league player for a decade. I don't think you just give up on him because he hasn't looked. I mean, he sucked last year on offense, right? But he still contributed to the team. So I don't think they're going to cut him to make room for any of the young guys. And I question whether they view it as being beneficial for the team or for the players long term to bring someone like Lipcius or Meadows up and then not play them every single day, or not play them 5 times a week at least. Because if Lipcius comes up, I don't think he's going to be playing more than a couple times a week, just based on the way we've seen Maton perform on both offense and defense. And you got Baez who's going to be playing every day. Hopefully Torque is playing every day. So then it becomes like, you're replacing him. Are you finding a spot for him every day? I don't know. So that's my main question there with Lipcius. But on merits, I think he has performed well enough so far to be on the opening day roster. I just don't know if they will view that as being the best sort of long-term decision.
Yeah, and I think the fact that he can play everywhere defensively, like a solid defensive glove, will help him. But I think in order for him to, a bench role for him along with Hernandez, I mean, that gives you two different types of different looks altogether. I mean, you have a guy then who can cover the left side of the infield because Lipcius can play third, Hernandez can play the right side of the field. And if you think that and Connor said it really actually better than I was going to say it. The Tigers actually have some infield depth a little bit. I mean, holy cow, what a concept, right? That's something we haven't seen on his team in quite some time, and it's a nice luxury to have, because now you can put Verling in the outfield. You don't have to worry about him putting in the infield, because I thought before spring training began, even before we started talking about all this, that Verling was just going to pencil him at third base, and Maton was going to come off the bench. And instead, now you have, we could put Verling in right if Austin Meadows is struggling. So again, this is where Scott Harris did exactly what Al Avila did not do, which is trade from a place of strength to just put some bodies in there. I know it sounds like I'm being really, really minimalist and being kind of a jerk about it, but the Tigers at least can have players to position themselves and put out in the field without looking desperate. They're not going to look like that dude who comes up to you in the parking lot asking for gas when in reality, he's going to spend money on meth. There it is.
I was hoping I didn't know where you're going with that, with the dude asking for something, but Yeah, you know what? I think that Vierling and Maton have really kind of changed the game a little bit for the Tigers, and they're replacing guys who could play a bunch of positions, but those guys played a bunch of positions because they weren't really good at any position.
Yeah,
It was the Ryan Rayburn utility factor, right? Where like, I don't know, put him somewhere.
the Rayburn factor. Yeah,
I think Willie Castro was developing into a decent right fielder, at least with his arm and stuff. But yeah, they have a lot of versatility now, which is good. Yeah, I mean, I've even toyed with the idea of, and I don't think this will happen because I don't think Donnie Sands has been terribly impressive in spring training. I don't think he's going to hit just based on his swing. But given that Eric Haas can play outfield, even though we haven't really seen it this spring, we know that AJ Hinch loves the flexibility of having three guys who can play catcher.
Right.
It wouldn't shock me if that ended up being the way they construct the roster to start the season, because they have so much more versatility with everybody else. Everybody else seems to be able to play like 8 positions. But I don't think that ultimately, I do think it's going to come down to which bats they find most complimentary.
yeah.
And so I don't know. I do think Hernandez is probably going to make the team because, as you said, yeah, he walks, he hits for extra base power, he can play second and he can play third, and he's a veteran. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it'll be kind of interesting to follow over these next few weeks to see who really surges forward in that regard.
Yeah, and Uper, I'm going to ask you this. I'm going to ask you guys both this question. I'll start with you, Uper. As far as Jake Rogers is concerned,
Mhm.
do you think Jake Rogers is a guy with Eric? And I mentioned this in my Woodward Sports piece about Jake Rogers. Look, if he was starting to hit righties better in 2021 before his injury, if he can hit righties at least at a 260 clip, do you put him as a catcher, a guy who starts more than twice a week, 3 times a week potentially?
If he can hold his stay above water against righties, I think there's a very good chance he could earn that. I mean, just this blocking stat. I mean, it shows you a lot about what Eric Haas is really about behind the plate. Eric Haas is there to hit, and if they can find another viable lineup presence who's a better catcher, and if that can be Jake Rogers, then Eric Haas should probably be out in left field and letting Jake Rogers catch a little bit more. So, yeah, I think he could play more than twice a week. I think that's very possible. Things were looking good in 2021. I mean, he was getting beyond that threshold where I thought it was a fluke. He's up at about 120 plate appearances, which is not a lot, obviously, but it was more than, a hot 30 at bats. He was looking pretty good. So the injury was a big bummer. But now he's back. He looks solid. And we're talking about this the other night. I think there's a very good chance that he's going to gobble up some playing time and get Eric Haas in the outfield. And maybe they'll even think about sticking a first baseman's glove on his hand someday. Who knows?
What about you, Chris?
Well, I think one of the things, ideally the Tigers would have a left-handed hitting catcher and a right-handed hitting catcher. But we saw with the Giants, they did some really interesting platoon stuff. So it wouldn't shock me if we see like Jake Rogers get starts against sinker ballers and Haas get the starts against the the 4-seam guys or something like that. We're non-traditional platoon splits or whatever, but yeah, I think Rogers is going to play a fair amount. I mean, he's had a great spring, and I think they want Haas. They like Haas's bat, like you were saying, and they should. He's been their most productive power hitter over the last 2 seasons. So anything you could do to kind of keep him from wearing down as a catcher, I think is good. So I think we'll see both those guys catch 70+ games this year, maybe 60+.
Yeah, it's going to be. It's one of the things that I think it's. But one of the things about this roster, let's keep this in perspective. This roster is still going to be a struggle. This team's still going to struggle. I think there's going to be some offensive ineptitude a little bit. And so, and Ty Cobb in our YouTube chat pretty much said a really good line. I really like. Harris did a good job of filling the back end of the roster, but where's the anchor to this lineup? And he's absolutely right. They don't have enough power. They don't really have a guy that's going to be like the 30 home run, 25, 35 home run guy right now. I can't tell you with a straight face without kind of go ahead, Chris.
Well, I think you're hoping it's Riley Green, right?
Right.
You're hoping it's Riley Green or Torkelson, does what he does. He's been doing this spring and brings it to North. Or, you're hoping Javi Baez bounces back. He's an anchor in two different meanings of the word, if you will.
On Austin Meadows too.
Yeah. So there are some options there, but yeah, there's nobody here right now that you go like, yep, that's absolutely the guy we're building it around. But I do think versatility. I expect Maton to play third base just about every day, but the option there is that there may be matchups that aren't terribly favorable for him, but you can get somebody else who can play third base. Maybe it's a great matchup for Tyler Nevin. So you have Nevin playing third base, you move Maton to second and bat him ninth or something like that. That's where the versatility comes into it, because Maton will still work a walk. So, yeah, I mean, these aren't a bunch of Ben Zobrists out there, but they're closer to Ben Zobrist than Willie Castro and Harold Castro were.
Yeah, I'll take that any day of the week. You could take the upside with that versus a guy. Maybe Harold Castro will come in, and it's sort of like it was when Harold Castro came in. Sometimes it was towards the end of the season, it was almost like comic relief at times. What I mean, like with him pitching and we're going to put Harold Castro next, and it just just seemed
Harold Castro batting cleanup, always fun.
Yeah, those are when I saw those lineups when I walked in, I was like, oh, come effing on. All right. So we have, in terms of, again, if somebody can, I would love, what would be progress? It'd be cool. The Tigers had, I don't know, 120 home run hitter. That'd be cool. I like that. That what a concept that would be, right? If somebody goes out there and hit 20, 25 home runs or even 30, then ideally the Tigers would be a lot more competitive. But I just don't see that happening right now. And I love to be proven wrong. But again, it's a combination of people out in the 30 home runs, and yeah. But all right.
Do you think it's really possible that Austin Meadows' power is just dried up?
I don't know. He didn't up until he had a sac fly the other day. It seemed like he hadn't hit a ball hard all spring. And it was like,
right.
What is going on here?
Exactly.
I don't think it is, but then we've seen. I mean, it seemed to happen to Scope last year and Candelario, and so I don't know. I mean, he seems too young for anything like that. I feel like he's maybe just getting back into the groove of playing frequently. I don't know. I'm hoping he's just it's a slow ramp up for him, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't at least like slightly concerned there.
Yeah.
All right, so we got questions about Badu. We got a lot of questions to get to, Chris. So let's start with I'll start with the question I got from Mark earlier on my DMs. And this is a question. Hey, Rogelio, why does Jonathan Davis have 19 at-bats in comparison to Badu? Badu has 17, Parker Meadows 20, and Verling at 15. I thought priority was going to be to the young players. Also, shout out to Chris's tweet earlier about barrel leaders in regards to Torkelson. Judging a player by a box score stats is silly, especially in spring training. I would agree with you, Mark. And thank you for the question.
Well, on the Jonathan Davis thing, I would never get too concerned about a veteran, older guy coming in and playing a bit. They're not going to play all the guys we want them to play every single day, because that's not how spring training works. They want these guys to get in their work, get in their exercise, be fresh, and not have to go on long bus rides or whatever. So you need somebody to go out there and play center field. And really, I'm trying to think. So we've seen Badu play a little, Verling play a little, Green play a little, Parker Meadows play a little. But then it's like, who else is there that's played center? Has Kreidler played out there yet or short? We've seen Bid Malgeri a couple times, I think. They needed a body. And as much as we'd like to see them just play Green and Badu and Verling every day, that's just not how spring training works. These guys get 3 at-bats, sometimes 2. So I'm not too concerned about it. He'll and I think there's also kind of an unspoken thing where you play those veteran guys more earlier in spring training. Just they're not going to make the team, but just so they have a little bit more tape out there or whatever this year. So in case somebody else needs them, they can put up some numbers and then they get picked up somewhere else. So I wouldn't be too concerned.
All right. What about you, Uper?
Yeah, I mean, he's got 19 at bats. The other guy's got 17. If you flipped it, would it be a big deal? Would we care? Not that. I think it's out there, though. The person who asked the question is not the first person I've seen wonder about that. But I think it does come down to the fact that they want to keep guys fresh, and they may need Davis, in July in a pinch. So they get a good look at him this spring, get used to what he's about, and it's a long year. Who knows?
Yeah, they don't know what they have with Davis. When they comparatively speaking, they have a good idea what they have with Badu and Verling, because there's a lot of tape on it. There's a lot of stuff on Davis too. Don't get me wrong, but they may think of Davis as playing every single position in the outfield. So we have another. There's I'm gonna get to this question real quick because I think this one's a good one from Alex. I know you guys are big minor league fans, so are you guys excited for Toledo this year? I feel like they could have a pretty productive year. Yes, we're going to the opener. We got approved for press passes. On March 31st, and they open the season. I think Toledo is going to be a fun team to watch. I mean, they're going to have a very good rotation. Their offense, that's the thing. Like I have a better time. I'm working on the West Michigan and Erie the roster predictions, which are going to be dropping hopefully this weekend. And it's easier to predict those rosters. Toledo, outside of a few, it's going to be hard.
Well, I mean, it's always much easier to work backward. So when we have a better idea who's going to make the Tigers roster, we can figure out Toledo.
It's also fun making those predictions, though.
Yeah, I mean, the odds are that we're going to see Kerry Carpenter or Akil Badu and Parker Meadows in Toledo in the outfield, and Ryan Kreidler or Andre Lipcius on the infield, possibly Dingler catching. I'm trying to think. I mean, it's going to be a pretty, not star-studded, if you will, but prospect-laden team.
Zach Short's got to have a spot.
Zach Short is going to be kicking around. Mario Feliciano is look good. We'll see probably him in Toledo. So, yeah, I mean, I think, but Raj touched on it, I think that the most impressive part is probably going to be the pitching down there, because we've talked about it a number of times. The Tigers are kind of too deep at starters right now. And we think
Phil Collins style.
Yeah. Some of those guys would probably work better in the bullpen in the big leagues, but, you want to have guys pitching every fifth or sixth day in the minors just in case you have an injury. So, I think I'm excited for Toledo this year. I'm excited for Erie. I'm excited for West Michigan. The only team that I'm a little bit skeptical about is Lakeland, but we'll find out. I'm sure some people will emerge.
Yeah, that's going to be in terms of pitching wise. I hope they have a better year than they did last year. That staff last year for Lakeland was they finished over 500. Let's not.
Yeah, I mean that was a heck of a managing job, if you will, by Andrew Graham. But I mean that's just the thing. Like the Tigers haven't added a ton of. They didn't draft a single high schooler last year, so you're looking at a couple interesting younger players, maybe in Lakeland and like Abel Bastidas, and maybe Santana and Campos and Sequeira repeat down there. We don't know, but I don't think it would hurt them if they did. But it'd be fun if they got. It would be more fun if they came to West Michigan for us.
Mm-hmm.
So all right, you had some more questions. We did a couple on Twitter. You want me to?
Yeah, go ahead and look at the Twitter ones.
So our buddy Mitch Lutsky said, "Do you see a scenario where AJ will carry one less pitcher to keep one more position player on the regular season roster?" I don't think that's allowed, is it? I think you have to be 13-13 now.
Yeah, I think it's
Or is it that you might be able to do 14 position players and 12 pitchers, but not the other way around? I didn't really look into that.
Yeah, not positive.
I was going to say, I think for the sake of whether if we're going, if we can, I will say the Tigers will have to carry an extra pitcher. Just because I think that a lot of these guys, like you think about the rotation for a second, there's nobody in the rotation that's throwing over 100 innings last year. Nobody,
Yeah.
not at all. You have Turnbull coming back from injury. You have Manning ramping it up. You have Eduardo Rodriguez only pitched 93 innings. Matt Boyd is going to be pitching his full season. And Michael Lorenz kind of like the split duties this year. So no, I'm not going to answer your expansion draft question. Not yet.
Do a special episode for the expansion draft. No, I think just about every manager in baseball would take more pitchers than hitters if they could.
Yeah.
Plus, they got the Rule 5 guy has to be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then
Oh, by the way,
oh, go ahead.
Well, this is one, Chris. This is right for you.
Yeah.
The question.
Well, I mean, the Tigers, if you want to get on the draft history, the Tigers have almost never taken more than 2 high schoolers in the first 5 rounds. Whereas, and that's one of the things we're looking to change this year with Mark Connor as the head of amateur scouting, because just a couple years ago, I want to say, well, they took James Wood and Jackson Merrill, both in the first 2 rounds, I think, first 3 rounds. And both those guys are top 20 prospects in baseball now out of high school. So, yeah, I mean, the Tigers, they took 2 high schoolers in 2018 with Parker Meadows and Kingston Liniak, rest in peace. He's not really dead, but he's out of the system now.
Yeah.
And then a couple years ago with Job and Pacheco, and that looks pretty good so far. But, yeah, they've always seemed to really favor college guys. So.
And Pacheco I think they're going to put Pacheco on their list too, along with Cole.
Yeah. No, I mean, Colt Keith is a very interesting case where we talked to him, and he was expecting to go higher, and he was expecting to get more money, and it didn't work out, but he was bluffing about going to college, and so the teams kind of called his bluff. And
I don't like school.
He came right out and said, he's like, I didn't want to go to college. We're like, well, yeah, sorry, guy. But, yeah, ordinarily, even when it happened, we were like, what? The Tigers never do anything like this. And it to the point where I thought it was insurance in case Gage Workman didn't sign. But, so, yeah, that worked out great for them. But I do think in the future we're going to see more high schoolers drafted in the early rounds. And overall, I mean, that was another thing. Is like, even when they did draft high schoolers, it was first couple rounds and then no more. At least until like the 38th round when they drafted somebody who wasn't going to sign. No
Lloyd McClendon's kid.
Yeah, well, there were
Mario Pemba's son.
There were
Rod Allen.
Rod Allen's kid. There were the nepotism years that were pretty bad there, but yeah. So anyway, I was gonna Deadly Ninja Bees asked a couple questions. Said, is Parker Meadows the superior Meadows? And how do you guys feel about the new arms in the bullpen? What will the bullpen ultimately look like? I don't know who wants to tackle those.
I like the bullpen competition right now. We mentioned earlier, Tyler Holton's doing a really good job. Trey Wingeater has also been pitching pretty good. So they have a lot of decisions to make there. I think that it's at first I was kind of wondering why so many arms, but now I understand why. I mean, Trevor, we're not going to see Rosenthal until probably towards the end of the spring. Even then, that's going to be who knows how much we're really going to see him. But I think right now, one guy who knocked himself off the race right now is the gentleman who throws a slider, who had a kind of rough outing today.
Whistler.
Yeah, Whistler. Whistler did not look good today, but it's a. I mean, for the lock right now, and we had a question about the bullpen right now. I think the lock is you're going to have Lang, Foley, Vest, which sounds like a law firm, actually, if you think about it. Alexander, I think that's right there. And then you have Mason Englert, and then the other spots where those other last 2 spots. And right now, I think in the clubhouse running right now, I think Tyler Holton's making himself a case. Shreve, yeah, and Chase Shreve.
I don't know if you mentioned Cisnero. I assume Cisnero.
Oh, Cisnero. I'm sorry. Yeah, Cisnero. How did I forget Cisnero? Yeah.
Well, the interesting one is if you were to just base it on spring training performance, I don't think Tyler Alexander would be heading north.
Yeah.
He hasn't been as good as Tyler Holton or as good as Shreve, and but he has a track record, and I think he probably will. He'll probably get it together here, but I wouldn't. Yeah, I'm not putting his name in pen just yet. He's still a pencil for me. I think like Kervin Castro has been really impressive for one of the new guys that they brought in, and Miguel Diaz, who we saw a little bit last year, has been really good so far. So yeah, I mean it'll be that always seems to be the final battle in spring training, right? Is those last bullpen spot or two, and it depends on. And they may even look at like, okay, here are the teams we're facing the first 15 games of the season. Like, how many lefties do they have? Do we need another lefty? It might get down to it almost certainly will come down to that. That's how Hinch operates. So I don't know. I mean, so far the I haven't been super impressed with any of the new guys. Like nobody's like blowing me away, at least for the people we haven't seen before. But like you said, I think Holton has been impressive, and yeah. So I think they'll piece together. They have enough options to piece together a solid bullpen again. I don't think it's going to be as good as last year, but yeah, I'm not concerned about it at the moment. Maybe we'll talk to me again in July.
Yeah.
His other question, is Parker Meadows the better Meadows? we touched on it a few minutes ago. The team moving forward, based on what they did last year, what the expectations were, what his track record was, I mean, the organization needs Austin Meadows to be a player again. Mm-hmm. I mean, if they're going to put a winning team on the ball field in the next couple of years, I mean, they need that guy who was, I know we're not all into RBIs and for good reason, but I mean, they need the guy who is 30 homers and 97 RBIs back, the guy who produced those numbers. But right now, I mean, if all the juice is behind Parker Meadows, I mean, we're really looking forward to seeing what he got this year.
You remember like just the first week of last season when Austin Meadows was there, and they acquired him, and it just sort of felt, it wasn't quite like, signing Prince Fielder or signing V-Mart or whatever, but it was like, this is a big league team, and we went out and got a big league run producer. And then the balloon completely deflated. So yes, it would be nice to get back to that feeling. But I mean, Parker Meadows is the superior athlete by a pretty wide margin. He's like, 2 grades better as a runner than Austin. He's got a stronger arm. He's a much better defender. Seemingly, close to the equivalent power. So he just hasn't done it in the big leagues. And so you don't want to make any proclamations yet, but he has a higher ceiling. He could be a 2020 center fielder in the big leagues, which is pretty rare. So, and I think that was it for his questions. Yep.
Yeah.
I don't know. Were there more in the chat we wanted to talk? Get? Are we good?
I think we're good.
Stan kept asking if is the roster better this year than last year.
Oh, okay. You know what? Let's ask Stan's question. Answer Stan's question. Personally, I think it's better. I think it's better, right? Like as I see it right now, I see it better because in addition to the again, yes, and somebody mentioned earlier, like Ty Cobb mentioned earlier, that was a good point. Versatility is just another way to mask, the fact that your team's not good. But that being said, I've seen a lot of progress by the Colt Keys in camp, if you will. I've seen a lot of good things in camp where it's encouraging. It's small signs, especially Jake Rogers is a good example of that. Jake Rogers has had a great camp. He is just happy to be out there, but he's doing a good job of hitting the ball. And another guy whose camp I really liked too a lot is a guy like Brandon Davis. Again, he's going to be a guy who's going to be down in Toledo. But don't forget, this guy was on the 40-man roster at one point. So he's a guy who makes solid contact. Those are things that again, it sounds trivial, but for people who watch Tigers enough to go, okay, that's something. It's something minuscule, but it's like getting scraps off a table. It's like, we'll take the scraps. It's not much. But there's some sort of, again, take away the spring training luster and all that stuff. There are some things on this roster that are encouraging. So,
I guess the way I would answer that question, it's a great question. Are we looking at last year's opening day roster or last year's closing day roster? What are they better than right now? Because, you look at that opening day roster, you had Mize and Skubal on there. You had Austin Meadows, who you expected 25 home runs from. You had, the rookies who we thought maybe be a little better than they were, and so on. We thought that had the chance of being a decent team. At least, most people did. This year's team, I think, has far more muted expectations. I haven't heard anybody say they're going to win much more than 75 games. So are they better from last year's opening day? I'm not sure they are. I think they have more depth, and I think they have less dead weight at the bottom of the roster, and those are good things. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I'm inclined to say Well, it's tough. I think the offense is significantly better. They did a lot of addition by subtraction, right? They gave like 1,500 plate appearances to the Castros, Victor Reyes, and Jeimer Candelario last year, and they've been replaced by Vierling, Maton, I don't know, Green, Torkelson, Austin Meadows. Like, they're going to be a better offense this year. If they aren't, everyone should be fired some more. You should rehire Alavila and then fire him again. And then send Scott Harris with him. But yeah, I mean, I think the pitching. I mean, you touched on the starting, but this is a bullpen last year at this time that had Michael Fulmer, Andrew Chafin, Gregory Soto, and Joe Jimenez. They're all gone now, and those were 4 really good relievers last year. So I do think overall the talent is slightly lower than last year, but I do think the potential is there to vastly outperform what they did last year because so many things went wrong.
Yeah, there's just
Barnhart,
Barnhart, yeah. There is, again, some of the upside is worth mentioning too, and the fact that they're going to at least have a core of their bullpen there. Lang is going to, if it was a completely revamped bullpen, I'd be a little nervous about it. But again, the one thing that I keep thinking about, I go back to, I've said this 3 times tonight, but the starting rotation, who's going to be the horse? That's the biggest. To me, that's the biggest key of it all. Who's going to be the guy who's going to be making 25? It's got to be Erod, 25 to 30 starts, which is why, in the grand scheme of things, the idea of trading him right now is ridiculous because here's why. He's a proven starter. He's going to go out there. He's going to pitch with a chip on his shoulder. And the better he does, the more likely the Tigers can fetch more at the trade deadline. If you trade him now, you're not going to get the same value, per se, that you would trade him at the trade deadline if he's not going to come back. So you don't know what you have. Go ahead, Uper.
He should be motivated. I'm sure his camp would love to see him opt out and get back on the market.
Yeah, I mean, all these teams went up. Yeah,
that's his contract. I mean, what he's due the rest of this is well below market value now. So
you want to get paid.
Yeah, I would. That's what if I were him, I would. I was just looking. So last year the Tigers had 7 relievers appear in at least 40 games, and 4 of them are gone. So that's a lot of finding a lot of bullpen appearances this year. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta be encouraged with Mason's performance so far too. There's some, like I said, for Rule 5, it's better, definitely more encouraging than whatever saw with Reed Garrett in camp.
Yeah, no, I mean, they went and got a starter. They got a starter, and they think that with his arsenal and his command, he's gonna survive, have a better chance of surviving in the big leagues than a Reed Garrett, who was a 2-pitch reliever who didn't have command.
I didn't understand. I never understood that decision.
Well, I mean, that's the sort of guy you go after in the Rule 5 is a hard-throwing reliever. You throw him, you stash him in the bullpen, you don't worry about it. And that's going to be – I don't think they're going to call on Englert to pitch in any key games. Well, really, I mean, the Tigers won't be in many key games this year. But
close games.
I don't think we'll see him pitch in any like high leverage situations that matter until late in the season, if at all. I think they'll put him in blowouts one way or the other, or early in a game where the outcome hasn't been decided at all. So I think they can make him survive hopefully this year because he does look like a promising pitcher to me.
Yeah, and the thing is too is like even with if you're looking at somebody like Reese Olson, for example, who hasn't pitched yet, which I think he's probably gonna start the season in Toledo because of his injury. Even that, there's some encouragement there. I still think what's gonna happen is we might see one or two more minor moves to happen, but I think to open things up a little bit. So if the Tigers would trade the Rangers for Mason, then put him in the back end of the rotation, you never know.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible that they could work out a trade with the Rangers and then send them. I mean, at that point, you can just send them down to the minors.
Yeah.
Put them in Double-A, and that would be fine. But, I don't know. I mean, I feel like I have this feeling that Garrett Hill is going to work his way into the bullpen. Maybe I would maybe not on opening day, but I think he might be a key bullpen piece by the end of the year. And you mentioned Trevor Rosenthal's in the fold now. He's not on the 40-man, but that's a guy that you bring in with the hopes that he can make the 40-man. So I think the bullpen will eventually be fine. It's just that they need to replace a lot of innings from last year.
Yeah, there's going to be there's I'm going to rule out any
Andy Ibanez and Jermaine Palacios, and there are a lot of those. That's more of that infield depth that I think they'd like to have those guys in Toledo if possible. Just that's one area where Scott Harris is trying to like rise the tide just a little bit compared to, under Al Avila, a lot of the guys in Toledo were kind of career minor leaguers, and these guys are kind of career quad A players. So it's just that very incremental improvement that I think that Harris has done pretty deftly, through a variety of waiver claims and then dumping and then getting the guys back on the roster with, so, but, eventually we'd like to see, I don't know, wins at the big league level.
And we'll see what happens. So at this point, I think we're all set. So thank you for listening to Woodward Tigers here on a Thursday evening. And don't forget, we're going to have more than likely. I'll freely admit that Sundays will probably be either you or John or somebody else until regular season begins. I'm going to I got so much other stuff going on right now. So that's why my hair looks as crazy as it does. But
speaking of hair, where is John and his perm? I was
promised a perm and I didn't see it.
Oh,
so
very disappointing.
Very disappointing in his perm. So
I wanted to see if he stuck his finger in the light socket.
Oh no, he sent me a picture of him at the salon. I'm like, okay, I didn't, so salon. Oh man, it wasn't at Lady Jane's. I think he's gonna get in trouble. So, but at any rate, we'll see everybody. Like I said, good possibility will come on Sunday, but there's plenty of content to get to. Plenty of content over at woodwardsports.com. Check out all the great features, writers, if you will. We're again waiting for the Lamar Jackson sweepstakes to happen because apparently, anyway, that's another thing. I'm also annoyed with that too. Who's better, golf or Jackson? 248 enough.
The most interesting thing to me is it's basically like old-fashioned collusion going on there. But
all these teams are suddenly like, no, we don't want them at all.
Yeah, the Ravens are like, this is how much we're going to give you, and somebody else can give you more, and everybody's like, no, we will not give you more because we don't want to pay that much for our quarterback down the road. So
how did Daniel Jones get that much money? Daniel Jones is not that.
Anyway, that's what quarterbacks get. Quarterbacks are, they making $30 to $50 million now. If you have
one big season.
Yep.
All right. On that note, we'll see you soon. Have a good weekend, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.
Which Tigers prospect will be the best quarterback?
248.